an unpredictable disease. One third of children, I completely agree with both of you. And I also want to stress on the fact that, in fact, COVID is such an unpredictable disease. One third of children who have been hospitalized with COVID had absolutely no underlying health conditions. And I think also children have had a really rough 2 years. They've had a lot of disruption to schools, disruption to extracurricular activities, disruption to things like sleepovers and birthday parties. And I think COVID, has really impacted their lives. So the ability to actually going back to some semblance of what they love and enjoy doing is such a huge benefit as well. Thank you so much, Scott, for that question. I completely.
I'm going to remove this for a second. I know the, hold on, let me tilt the camera this way. This is going to come up twice in today's stream. You see a tweet, and there are many possible angles to take in a response to a tweet. And typically, you want to go with your best take first. But sometimes there's just too many. And then you have to go back and, tweet one observation after another on a subject, a tweet, whatever. And, it could look not repetitive, but it can look like the thought is boiling around in your mind, which it is. And this is going to come back when we talk about Justin Trudeau's outrageous tweet from yesterday, where he's in a swing set in an indoor setting with his wife holding hands, and they're both wearing face masks. We're going to get there. But in this particular 45-second excerpt from this interview, which if you haven't seen the interview, I'm getting some updates here on my computer. If you haven't seen the interview, you have to go watch the interview. You can find the link by going to YouTube, or I don't know if it's on Rumble. My goodness, I'm going to have to start posting chunks of that interview to Rumble. You have to go listen to this interview with Justin Trudeau, a doctor named Dr. Sharkawy, Sharkawy, and let me see if I can see this person's name. And Sabina Vor-Miller, who apparently is also a doctor. I'm gonna play this again. You have to go listen to this interview. Yeah, I'm going to use the word insidious a lot this stream. I'm going to use the word insidious as opposed to the more common words like crazy, outrageous, crazy, wacky, whatever, because it's insidious. That interview is the most insidious. If you want to talk about YouTube potentially banning misinformation, they should start by breaking down that interview. It's insidious misinformation and propaganda and exploitation of children, all in one 35-minute interview. But this particular clip, we practice critical thinking. We practice analyzing the meaning of words on this channel. Know the vlog. My father always told us growing up. He still says it these days, but we've learned the lesson that tools. Sorry, I screwed it up already. Words are the tools of a lawyer's practice. A plumber works with tools. A doctor works with utensils. A lawyer works with words, for good and for bad. I mean, they wordsmith to the point where nothing means anything, and they also craft well-drafted contracts to protect your interests, only so that someone else can go wordsmith and interpret it in a way that would, allow them to derive whatever conclusions they want. But words are the tools of a lawyer's profession. And if nothing else on this channel, other than critical thinking and respecting other people's beliefs, I hope people take away lessons on language. There are a number of lessons on language in this. Listen to this, by the way. Language, thought, critical thinking, statistics. Listen to this.
I completely agree with both of you. And I also want to stress on the fact in fact,
hold on 1 second. Before we get there, people, disclaimer time. No legal advice, no medical advice, no election fortification advice. This is for informative. This is for education and entertainment, but mostly education. But I'm not commenting on things that are beyond my wheelhouse. Critical thinking is not beyond my wheelhouse. It is my wheelhouse. Let's get back to this. Listen to this.
COVID is such an unpredictable disease. One third of
It's an unpredictable disease. There are some statistics that might make that true for certain demographics and not true for other demographics, but whatever. It's an unpredictable disease. Okay.
disease. One third of children who have been hospitalized with COVID had absolutely no underlying health conditions.
There are two things which, if you have been on this channel for long enough, you're going to pick up right there. One third of all children hospitalized with COVID had absolutely no underlying conditions. Okay. There's a mental game that people play where they throw out a big statistic to scare you. One third. It could have been, by the way, it could have been 80%. It could have been all. But they go with one. She goes with one third. This is the doctor's statement. One third of all children admitted with COVID had absolutely no underlying conditions. Okay, that's a big number. One third is like 33%. Why not mention the number of children that were admitted to the hospital, even from COVID? But let's get to the second part in a second. One third of all children, that's a big number, but she fails to mention the actual number because the number of children hospitalized with or from or whatever with COVID, it's exceedingly small. So this doctor, what she says might be statistically correct, but it's fundamentally misleading because the number, one third, but one third of a few hundred, a few thousand of the hundreds of thousands of hospital admissions, the hospital admissions for children, you can check the numbers. It's statistically very minor. I don't want to qualify it. I don't want to say insignificant. It's statistically exceedingly rare. Any children hospitalization from COVID, it happens. But you can check the stats. They're on the government's website. So I won't even qualify them. Go check them. I don't have them out right now. They are very rare. And that's hospitalized, if we go by her wording, which is very interesting wording, that's hospitalized, not from COVID. She didn't say it, so she's not lying.
Disease. One third of children who have been hospitalized with COVID,
I can't get that.
Absolutely no under.
I just wanted to replay the with COVID, hospitalized with COVID. And do you know what we now know? Because the politicians in the States and the doctors in Canada don't trust me. Go listen to Kieran Moore. Who's the other one there? The one who I have issues with, Alberta. Dina Hinshaw. This doctor here says one third, that big number of the children hospitalized with COVID. And we now know because the doctors and the politicians are specifying it. They're clarifying this. And I tweeted about it at the time. It's time that we distinguish between hospitalized with COVID and hospitalized from COVID. 2 years into the freaking pandemic, this is their revelation. The 101 of what should have been done from day one is to distinguish who's hospitalized with, that means incidentally or not the reason for the admission, versus who's hospitalized from, which means hospitalized from that issue. And we now know, because they've even said it, children hospitalized with broken bones, injuries unrelated to COVID, they get automatically tested when they get into the hospital. And we now know that if they tested positive when they got admitted for another reason, they were counted as a COVID admission. So this doctor, very deceitful in what is being said and what is being omitted. One third of all kids hospitalized without giving you the number of children hospitalized, and hospitalized with COVID, not hospitalized from COVID. Oh, sorry, there was a second part that I wanted to get to of this entire thing, which is nothing short of, I'll say, coercion, spiritual blackmail. Listen to this.
Had absolutely no underlying health conditions. And I think also children have had a really rough 2 years. They've had a lot of disruption to schools, disruption to extracurricular activities, disruption to things like sleepovers and birthday parties. And I think COVID, has really impacted their lives. So the ability to actually going back to some semblance of what they love and enjoy doing is such a huge benefit as well. Thank you so much, Scott.
Do we need a translation of what that means? That is, first of all, she's right. I wouldn't say COVID has impacted the kids' lives. It's certainly been the government response. It's certainly been the government measures. It's certainly been the desecration of what makes humans humans. She's right, though. She's right. Sorry. Justin Trudeau was on his phone while she was saying this. She's certainly right. It has impacted children in devastating manners. And we've talked about this in previous streams. It's devastated them psychologically. We're seeing bad ideations on the increase. We're seeing distress calls on the increase. We're seeing harmful thoughts, harmful actions on the increase, depression on the increase, issues related to consuming intoxicants on the increase. We know it's been devastating for the young generation. And congratulations to all those policymakers who've sacrificed a young generation, an entire young generation, to pretend to support the older generation. You didn't even succeed in your goal. You just effectively damaged an entire generation of kids. But this doctor's right. It has been very devastating on children. And they just want to get back to some semblance of normalcy. And the way to do that, by the way, is to be coerced into agreeing to this medical intervention. Just do it and you get your lives back. That's basically what this doctor's saying. You have to listen to the interview in its entirety. It's just shocking. And there's no other way to say it. It's, I mean, I was speechless at the propaganda, at the misinformation, at the misleading. And then hold on a second. Let me see this. You know what? Let me 1/3. No, hold on. Let me bring up not this one again. We're gonna go here. Ooh, let me bring this back. It was another interview. This was a question to the doctor. Listen to this. We're gonna hear this.
Our next question is going to be from Scott, who is a parent of 2 young boys.
Morning, everyone.
Listen to this.
I've heard that COVID-19 is not usually serious in children. What are the benefits for kids to get vaccinated?
Great question. So we have to remember
Great question. It's the most obvious question on earth.
Side effects or the problems that can arise from COVID may be less common in kids. That doesn't mean that they can't occur. And that doesn't mean that if they do occur, they can't be very, very, very serious. And that can include anything from serious breathing difficulties to learning difficulties to difficulties with concentration and a lot of things that never quite go away. And we hear about this term long COVID. That happens in kids. We don't know exactly how often it happens in kids. And the estimates range from 2% to maybe even as high as 5%, depending on where you're looking. That's something that may never go away. And we want to prevent our kids from ever having to go through that. We also want to remember that even if they don't get sick, again, they can spread the virus to others, including their parents and people in their homes, in their communities, their grandparents, other people who are much greater risk. So if we put a clamp on COVID-19 and prevent it from spreading from anyone, even if they have minimal symptoms, that's a great thing that kids can do for their families and their communities. We're in this together. Sure.
At the risk of what I can and cannot comment on that, I think the last part of that would be qualified as misinformation if anyone else uttered those statements that you need it to clamp transmission. I mean, we know what we know now. The argument has shifted from preventing transmission to minimizing symptoms if and when, because those who have been vaccinated can still carry, transmit, and contract the virus. And we don't know how much long COVID affects children. Okay. So what's your medical opinion then, based on not knowing how much one aspect of potential COVID infection could infect a child long-term, do you recommend? Based on that lack of information, you make a positive blanket statement that all children aged 5 and up. I mean, it's shocking. It's just shocking. And it's shocking from a basic elementary analysis, not from any getting out of your field of expertise. Great question. My goodness. Who that's a great question. You just thought of that question yourself right now? Like, that's amazing question. There's a lot of stuff we don't know. Therefore, do what we're telling you to do, because of the stuff we don't know for a demographic which, liars figure and figures lie, or figures lie. You know what it is. 3 types of lies. Lies, damned lies, and statistics. Yes, but just go look at the statistics of the number of hospitalizations. I think there have been, at the last I checked, there had been 15 or 19 deaths. It was 15 deaths in children under 19, one of which included the 14-year-old boy in Alberta who died from stage 4 brain cancer, who Dina Hinshaw blamed his death on COVID because they tested him when he was in a coma and he tested positive. So they attributed his death to COVID. These liars. 15. That's what we know from the stats. Long COVID, hospitalizations. I mean, they go from the known to the hypothetically unknown, which would be a fraction of the known, to then conclude on their government recommendations. And then I wouldn't even dare ask the obvious questions. If we're talking about hospitalizations, you know, I would have asked that question. How many people have been, how many children have been hospitalized from fill in the blank? Great question, Viva. What I can tell you is this. Where was it that, oh, son of a bee sting. What was I going to say? I wanted to, oh, was it this one? No, that was the one we just looked at. And, you know, that's what's going on. And that's what's going on in the government realm. I saw 2 super chats, and now I figured out, by the way, the technique. I can star them. So even if I lose them, do we see them here? Yes. Chet Chisholm, Canadian $10. So you're from Canada. Hospitalized can mean seen in the ER. It's not uncommon for parents to take their kids to the ER when they don't have a family doc, because we can't find them anymore in Canada, when their kid has a significant viral infection for treatment. I agreed. I mean, first of all, you also go to the ER when you have a sinus infection or whatever, and you can't find your doctor because your doctor's not answering your calls anymore. Let me unflag that one, and let's go to this one. Just me, Nicole. Just looked up the INSPQ. It's less than 5 in 2 years as of April 22nd. INSPQ. Okay. Just Nickel, thank you very much. Beautiful dogs, by the way. Beautiful dogs, but I don't like dogs that I consider to be smarter than me or who look like they might be smarter than me. Now, I see an avatar here in a super chat which looks familiar. Oh, no, it is Jamie Lee Fan. Okay, how you doing? People don't want to admit the truth after consuming the propaganda. I've never consumed the propaganda. If someone accuses me of, hold on, let me bring it up. No, I'm not going to make any comment. I'm just going to go to my Twitter feed. Here. Just want to, I'll read Justin Trudeau's tweet of the day. Justin Trudeau tweeted this: the National Immunization Awareness Week. We thank everyone who took part in the largest vaccination campaign in Canada's history. And we recommit to making sure vaccines and treatments reach the people around the world who need them. Yeah, I mean, for a lot of vaccines, you know, I got tetanus. You know, when I was metal detecting, I cut my finger on a little metal cap under the ground, went and got my tetanus shot. But he says that we'd like to thank everyone who took part in the largest vaccination campaign in Twitter history. And, oh, you see, look, no, that's not mine. That's not mine. Sorry, these are a lot of people. The responses to his Twitter don't seem to, they don't seem to be very nice. Let me just see. But yeah, mine is going to be way back on the bottom. So forget that. I'll just go to.
We've now essentially clinically tested the vaccine on billions of people worldwide.
So I just, you know, facetiously said that you seem to be calling Barack Obama a liar, Justin Trudeau. And if anyone accuses me of being the anti-V word, you all know I told you when I got it. I told you why I got it. I took some flack for it. And people are within their rights to give me flack, but I still say shaming someone for the decisions they make is just as bad as shaming them for the decisions they don't make or they choose not to make. Live and let live, and that's where the problem becomes the issue, when people tell you what to do with your body and judge you for what you do or do not do with your body. So how long until Canada has a despot now? Well, before we get to answering that question, I love that avatar. Before we get to that question, I said at the beginning, you know, sometimes one tweet or you'll have one tweet or one story that will generate multiple angles to how you dissect that tweet, as seen with that initial clip of the doctor saying 1/3 of kids hospitalized with COVID have absolutely no underlying conditions. There were a number of responses that I wanted to respond to that and just didn't have the time. But yesterday, Justin Trudeau, Justin Trudeau. Look at this. Look at this, people. Justin Trudeau yesterday on, I guess it's his wife's birthday. I'm assuming they're still married. None of my business. He says, your energy, your humor, your love, there's nothing like it. Happy birthday, mon amour. That means my love in French. Je t'aime. That means I love you in French. This was yesterday. Is it yesterday? Yeah, it's April 25th today. This was yesterday. We don't know when this picture was taken, but it's Trudeau's new facial style, so it's not from a while back. This is a photograph which is purporting to be a man and wife, a man and woman, husband and wife, holding hands in a swing set indoors. They're both wearing face masks. I have a number of things that I want to say about this, but when you have to pick one at a time. One of my responses was, trust the science, plebs. When you don't wear a mask to visit the 96-year-old Queen of England, but you wear a mask for a photo op with your wife. And for those of you who don't recall, Justin Trudeau met with the Queen, talked about Ukraine, did not wear a mask to meet with the 96-year-old Queen of England. And I'm not saying that the Queen of England is more important than Justin Trudeau's wife. Politically, she probably is. I mean, this is the Queen of freaking England. If there's one person that you have to protect in England, it's the Queen of England. He meets her. Very close, by the way. Very intense gaze. A little Jake Gyllenhaal-ish, his look here. But he meets with the Queen of England, no mask. Photo op with his wife, holding hands, mask wearing. And when I said that there were going to be, I was going to use the word insidious multiple times today. Let me just get out of here because I think people don't want to see this anymore. Oh my goodness. It's insidious. I don't care when that photograph was taken. There's going to be an argument maybe that photograph was taken with his wife. I don't know. Maybe they were in quarantine or something, or maybe he was infected, he had the Rona and she didn't. I don't know. So many angles. One is it's utterly unscientific. From the guy who walks around saying, trust the science, and if you don't, you're a right-wing extremist, racist, Yahtzee, whatever. From the guy who says that, to go meet and greet the Queen of freaking England maskless, to post a picture of him holding his wife's hand masked. There's no science there. And not only is there no science there, I'm going to say there is insidious manipulation, insidious propaganda. Insidious trying to normalize that which is fundamentally abnormal and immoral. The idea that one would try to normalize that there are times when even with your wife, you're going to take a picture where you're both wearing face masks for no better reason. Unacceptable. It's unacceptable debasing of the most sacred human relations. Jamie Lee McFadden says, Viva, you are one of the few people that admits when you are wrong, hence why so many of us watch you. Honesty is rare these days. Thank you very much. I don't like being wrong, but the only thing worse than being wrong is not admitting it. And I can tell you that from life experience with other humans, and you learn from other people's mistakes. The only thing worse than being wrong is trying to cover it up or not admitting it. But this idea that Justin Trudeau, even if it's virtue signaling, I will not get used to debasing the most fundamental, sacred human relationships in such a manner. Period. When over Christmas and over the holidays, when we found out my kid had COVID, you think I'm gonna isolate my kid and go hide in the basement or hide my kid in the basement? I was eating food out of his mouth just to make sure that I would get it, so we could all get it at the same time and get over with it. The idea that again, I'm not going to judge other people for what they do to their bodies, but I might judge them for what they do to their kids. When their kids get sick, to isolate the kids or to isolate themselves. When you become a parent, you make that sacrifice that you are no longer the most important thing to yourself. It's your kids. And now, admittedly, look, you get sick and go to the hospital. It's not good for your kids either. But when your kid gets sick and you know your risks and you know your stats and you know your health status, when your kids get sick, you are there to comfort them. You don't, as much of a germaphobe as you might be, as much of a hypochondriac as I might be, you don't get to recoil into the basement. And you certainly don't get to hide your kids in the basement to protect yourself. Unless they have the stomach flu. Then you get your wife to do it, because I say it as a joke, but even when my kids are vomiting, I'm, cleaning it up and holding their hair. But the idea that Trudeau thinks it's virtuous to tweet a picture of him and his wife holding hands but wearing masks, it's contrary to what it means to be a human. Okay, Zorosifer, good to see you again. Viva, what is your bet on how much long the travel ban will last? Had a Guillain-Barré syndrome reaction before and scared. Okay, and for anybody who doesn't know, it's GBS. I know this because a family member, not immediate, not a father, brother, or sister, or son or nephew. I just don't want to be accused of lying. I have a family member who got GBS, Guillain-Barré syndrome, and it's a potential adverse reaction to any foreign intrusion into the body, which could include viral infections themselves. So this is when people say, like GBS is a potential adverse reaction to a vaccine. It is not just to COVID, but to any. It's just always on the list because any foreign intrusion into your body can trigger that reaction. But it's also a potential adverse reaction to an actual viral infection. So you can, and it's when your body attacks your own nervous system, and you can become or do become paralyzed or numb to varying degrees. And it can be very serious. If it paralyzes your nervous system, you got to go on a respirator to breathe for you until your body starts healing. And the healing could be full, or it could lead you with lasting issues. So getting GBS reaction before is a very, it's a legit thing. That being said, Zarosser, as far as I understand, it's a legit concern from any viral infection itself. But I started missing my family. It's terrible. It's dehumanizing humans. How long do I think the travel ban will last? I think it's going to come down sooner than later because, Canada can only be a laughingstock of the international community for so long. And the international community is moving on. I mean, if you're unvaxxed, I don't even think you need to take a negative test or get a test to cross the border anymore from the States. I think the States are eliminating it. In Canada, it's going to come down sooner than later because there's no way in my mind the courts are going to say this is constitutionally justified in my mind. But I have been wrong pretty much on every assessment of where the courts were going to go on the curfews, on the quarantine hotels. I've been shocked. But that's why the opinion of the lawyer doesn't matter, only the opinion of the judges. Avatar is Peterson's Hail Lobster. How great a movie about the Bay of Pigs be, starring Justin Trudeau. Oh man. Okay, so I saw another red super chat. Well, before we get there, we know they're not together anymore. If they're supposed to mask around strangers, this proves it. And her tweet, her post on Instagram. This is getting back to that masks photo. She posted the same day on Instagram a picture of her daughter with her mother, no masks, and talking about love and turning 40, whatever. Not a mention of Justin Trudeau. I can't imagine what it feels like to be as lonely as I presume Justin Trudeau feels in this world. Loathed and lonely. But he did it to himself. So, okay, let me get that one out of here. Sorry, I did not mean to bring that up. Catherine, I do appreciate humor. Catherine Canonico says, nothing. Thank you for the super chat. Viva, we are standing back and standing by, brother. We, the red, white, and blue will have your back if you ever need a way. Thank you. I love that. Megamind meets Biden. Catherine Connick, I hope you did not mean to super chat the last one. When the U.S. went back and looked at all the deaths, all of them from children with COVID, they found exactly 0. That's right, 0 that were from COVID. I do not agree, confirm, deny. Thank you for the chat. I will go verify. I do know that CDC confirmed a number of clerical mistakes in their calculation of numbers. I do know that from the moment our government and our medical officials admitted publicly that they had not been distinguishing between hospitalized with COVID versus hospitalized from COVID, it doesn't stand to reason. It necessarily follows that the number of deaths are going to be equally inaccurate in that sense, from versus with. So that was the Trudeau thingy things. You need to watch George Carlin video on germs. It's so you don't know for sure. I know George Carlin. He's got a great bit on germs. But it's, the thing with vomit, it's not that I'm selfish. I hate vomiting more than anything, actually more than the dentist. I hate vomiting. I don't think there's anybody out there who likes vomiting, but if there's a fear of vomiting, I have it. And the sound, the smell, the sheer act of it, like when your body releases, sometimes it can be like, can be satisfying to watch, like, mango worm extraction or botfly extraction or pimple popping, things like that have a certain satisfaction value to watch. Vomiting, everything. And my biggest phobia is walking around downtown Montreal the day after St. Paddy's Day, because you're literally dodging vomit and dodging green vomit at that. Yes, thank you very much. Yes, the hair, the fro shall grow. Read the Bible. It says what will happen. I'm going to take that in the peaceful sense. But y'all can read that. The heave. And I guess, the animal that is the least painful to watch vomit are dogs. So they don't seem to care. Mango worms extraction. If you go watch the vet in the Gambia, I think I've talked about it before. My goodness, the mango worm extractions. There's a part of me that wants to, that it's on my bucket list. Mango worm extraction or botfly extraction. All right. So pimple popping is not satisfactory to watch. What? You must be saying it is satisfying to watch. I agree with you, Funky Blue. Okay, I've said too much. So someone asked if we officially live in a what do we say? What was the word someone used? A despotic government. Oh, here. Okay, well, actually, before we get there, Zoroaster is back in the house. You are right about GBS, but I see it like walking around. You could get hit by a car. What you choose? Would choose to walk in the street because of that? Well, I mean, the distinction is something happening to your body because of something you don't do or because of something you do. Yeah, do. So, like, it's true. You can't prevent yourself from getting a cold, stepping on a needle in a carpet and it breaking in your heel of your foot. You can't predict those things. So if that happens and then you get whatever, okay, you can't predict what happens to your body. There is psychologically a different way of perceiving actively doing something that you didn't necessarily have to do to your body and then having it. Like, getting a tattoo, I'm sure GBS is a potential. Hold on. Now that I say that out loud, let's just do this in real time. Hold on one second, people. GBS tattoos. Looks like it's a potential. Yeah, okay. It looks like it's a potential possibility of getting a tattoo or a piercing. It's just an infection in your body. Your body reacts and attacks your own nervous system. So yeah, but like getting a seasonal cold or a flu and then having that happen would be psychologically different than deciding to go get a tattoo and having it happen. So yeah, I understand what you're talking about. Hold on. I obviously have to bring up the Lonely Island. The Lonely Island reference. 2 words about furniture, killing machines. And that is from YOLO featuring Adam Levine. Probably one of the best Lonely Island songs ever. The Way to My Heart is through a Lonely Island reference, or Simpsons, or Family Guy. Netflix is, you know what? This is reminding me of a fact check I might do. Go look up the story of Better Call Saul, Bob Odenkirk. Go look up Bob Odenkirk, and then how it becomes a battle for ideas, but you can't even ask the questions because it makes you a theorist to go ask the questions. She has tweeted her disdain for the unvaxxed and has pushed her opinion on all of us. AGM this week. Thoughts? Make your opinion known. AGMs are general meetings. They're the shareholder meetings, or what is it called? The general meetings. I forget what it's called. Go make your voice known. They're fun. They're learning experiences. Canada is being used as a. Okay, I'm not gonna. I understand the sentiment. I can neither confirm nor deny, but I understand the sentiment. Okay, now what we were saying was, despot. Is Justin Trudeau a despot? Well, for those of you who don't know, they are not calling it a protest. They are calling it commemoration not a memorial, but rather they're calling it. Someone give me another word for a protest. It's not a protest in Ottawa this weekend. It is military veterans who wanted to ride their bikes, and that being motorbikes, up to the war monument. The I forget the name for it. It starts with a C. It has a C in it. The epitaph, the cepitaph. In Ottawa, motorbikers and vets or veterans want to motorbike up to the memorial and pay their. It's not a demonstration. Let's call it a remembrance or a vigil. Well, I don't think it's a rally. They want to bike up to the war memorial to pay their respects. Cenotaph, thank you. They want to drive up to the cenotaph to pay their respects. It's planned for August 29. What happens in a free and democratic society? You will not believe the press release from the Ottawa police. But before we do, I see it live from the shed. We like sports and we don't care who knows. That's the sports guys. You know, those are among my least favorite of the Lonely Island songs. Two guys, it's Yorm Keeves and Akiva. Those are among my least favorite of the songs, but they're still good. I'll give it Live from the Shed. Everybody should be checking out, following Live from the Shed, because I believe they are actively involved in the, if not planning and organizing, at the very least. I'm saying this because I don't want to get anyone in trouble. Lord knows in Canada, you can get in trouble for planning a rally if the government comes in and calls it an unlawful rally. So go check out Live from the Shed for anybody who doesn't know, and you can get some info there. Coordinated gathering. Well, let's just hear what the government, let's read, I should say, what the government has to say about the coordinated gathering. Because what the Ottawa police put out, I mean, it's, where am I going to go to get it? Well, here, I'll go to my tweet afterwards. This is from, just so everybody appreciates it, it's from the Ottawa police website. So there had been a number of PDFs that were being circulated. People, it's not rocket science. Don't share screen grabs. Don't share images with text if you haven't verified them on your own, for obvious reasons. So I saw a number of tweets and a number of images. I was like, I'll tweet the actual screen grab that I pull myself with my own two eyes from the website when it's up. But better than that, we're at Ottawa Police. You can see I've highlighted it here, and I'm just going to refresh so everybody knows this is straight up legit. I am not agreeing to cookies. Ottawa Police statement on Rolling Thunder. That's what the rally is called, Rolling Thunder. For immediate release. People, wait until you actually read what the Ottawa Police are tweeting, or what their press release for the Rolling Thunder, which is the event scheduled for April 29. I will be there documenting in real time, again, so that nobody can lie or fabricate or misrepresent what goes on, for good or for bad. If I can get there. I don't know what part of Ottawa they're blocking off the traffic, but we'll see. The Ottawa Police, whatever. Do we need me to highlight? We're at the first paragraph, people. The Ottawa Police Service has developed an enhanced operational approach to manage the Rolling Thunder event scheduled for April 30th. Sorry, not April 29th. Along with any impacts from the arrival of participants on April 29th. We have heard the concerns of the community. Since February, we have adjusted our overall approach to all demonstrations, protests, events, and rallies. Listen to this. This is like when Justin Trudeau says, I'm not bringing in the military and I'm going to respect your charter rights, but I'm bringing in a militarized police and I'm freezing your bank accounts with no court order and immunizing the banks for so freezing your bank. But don't look at what I'm doing. Just listen to what I'm saying, people. The right to lawful and peaceful demonstrations will always be protected. We will not allow for unsafe or unlawful conditions that could lead to another unlawful protest as seen in February. I've got a question. Who declared that protest to be unlawful? Where is it ordered, deemed by a court? Because unlawful is not a matter of opinion. It's a matter of law. Hence, contrary to law, unlawful. Where is there a court order that has declared that protest unlawful? There might have been unlawful acts committed during that protest. Where is there an order of the court, a judgment, I won't even say an edict. Where is there anything that confirms the protest back in February was unlawful? unlawful acts being carried out at a lawful protest is far different than an unlawful protest. Where? I haven't seen it yet. Maybe there is something there. I just haven't seen it. Listen to this. What do? Vehicle exclusion zones. You have the right to protest if you can get there. As a result of the unlawful protest, just keep repeating it. Keep repeating it. You know, when you're in court and you just bad faith, you keep saying bad faith. As a result of their bad faith actions, as a result of their malicious, just keep repeating it, and eventually it just becomes true through repetition. As a result of the unlawful protests, the city of Ottawa's position is that no motor vehicle protests, okay, rallies or events will be allowed in the designated downtown core areas. You can protest. We're just going to tell you how you can do it, when you can do it, and if we don't like what you're doing, we're going to call it unlawful, and it shall become fact. The Ottawa Police is supporting and enforcing that decision. That's how things work now? The Ottawa Police makes a decision. They don't follow the law right now. They follow their own opinions. They follow their own positions. We issue our position, and we will be respecting our position. Very principled. This includes near Parliament Hill and the National War Memorial and applies to all demonstrations, rallies, and events. All motor vehicles will be prohibited from participating in any of these events in these designated areas. Okay, fine. So they want to keep cars out of designated areas. Fine. I'm prepared to even say that's fine. The way you're describing it in your preamble is a problem. Yeah, you don't want cars driving through a protest anyhow. So yeah, you'll create the designated area and no cars park outside. And I think that's what effectively happened anyhow, above and beyond the cars that parked on Wellington during February. Everybody else parked their cars outside and walked in. Increased police presence. We will receive significant additional resources from multiple partner agencies. What does that mean? They're not bringing in the military, but it sounds like they're bringing in somebody. It sounds like they're bringing in some other forces outside of Ottawa. That's what it sounds like to me. Oh, I'm sorry, here. Including RCMP, OPP, and municipal police services. We're bringing in the cavalry, quite literally. RCMP, for those of you who don't know, stands for Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Mounted because they're on horses. Literally, we're bringing in additional resources, the cavalry. Maybe this time they learned their lesson from last time and they won't parade horses through a crowded protest. Maybe. Who knows? Maybe they learned the wrong lesson from that the last time. The focus of these resources will be on public safety. Of course, it's always for your safety, maintaining the right to protest, and enforcing applicable laws. We are limiting your right to protest to maintain your right to protest. Orwell would be very happy. He's smiling in his grave. That's not, okay, fine. Organizers, any organizer of any event, we're not talking about this one, people. It's everyone, I'm sure, will be held accountable for their actions before, during, and after the events. This is tantamount to a lawyer saying, may I remind you that you're under oath? Thank you. You're going to hold people responsible for their conduct. That's what the law is. You don't need to remind us that you're going to enforce the law if that's what you're going to do, unless that's not exactly what you're going to do, but who knows? Listen to this. Online comments. People, let me just go star a super chat so I can come back to it. We continue to monitor online and open source commentary related to all events. Threatening or intimidating behaviors will be investigated and subject to charges where warranted. First of all, that should always be true. That should always be true. You don't need to say committing crimes will be investigated. We continue to monitor online and open source commentary related to all events. By the way, at least they're telling you, what their intentions are, because I have a sneaking suspicion the intention is to search through social media and misconstrue, read dog whistles into any variety of innocuous messages to justify investigations, to justify political persecutions of their ideological adversaries. And that is why I've said it from the beginning. I'll say it again. And OPP, you should be very happy with me. You know what they're looking for, people. Anyone who's planning to attend this as a participant, you know what they're looking for. Do not give them any excuse, any reason. The problem is, and I documented 40 plus hours of this during the last protest. They didn't really give the police or the government any meaningful excuse the last time. And yet, they still found an excuse. But you will not win any battles with the police, knowing what they're looking for, by giving them an excuse. Always peaceful, without exception, end of sentence, full stop. But this is, it gets even better, guys. I'm sorry. I haven't seen the chat in a while. Investigations, investigative teams, including our hate crime unit. The power lies in the accusation. When someone calls you a racist, a xenophobe, a Yahtzee, an anti-Semite, the power lies in the accusation. It could be as absurd as calling Ben Shapiro a right-wing extremist, but the power lies in the accusation. You accuse someone of it, other people get to run with the accusation, despite all idiocy of the accusation itself. But they're bringing in the hate crime unit. They're focused on gathering evidence and laying charges. We are also in touch with the crime. Like, okay, first of all, if crimes are committed, you don't have to say these things. But for this rally to the war memorial from veterans, they're warning that they have a hate crime unit in place. It's almost incentivizing certain idiotic behavior from attention-seeking individuals or saboteurs. It's almost incentivizing it. But after all of this, by the way, Charter of Rights and Freedoms, as a police service, we will always protect the rights of individuals to lawfully and peacefully protest in line with the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. By the way, I think the judge in the injunction said the same thing about the last protest. Since the removal of the unlawful protests, we have worked to ensure more than 100 protests could occur lawfully and peacefully in the core. That's interesting. As we do with all events, we reached out to Rolling Thunder's organization to ensure we understand their plans. We do this for every event, from football games to rallies to demonstrations. This is not meant to support any specific cause, but to ensure that lines of communications and the public, yada, yada, what to expect. All right, and you can go read the rest. I had to get to the hate crime part. And I'm going to go post this in here so you all can share it. And anybody who goes there, anybody who shares it, do not give them an excuse because you know they're looking for an excuse. How do I get this out of here? It's not a question of turning the other cheek. It is a question of knowing what they are looking for, knowing what they want to hold against you, what they want to use against you, and not even giving them the iota, the perception of an excuse. I'm going to get to my tweet in a second, but let me bring up some chats. It's outrageous. It's absolutely outrageous. Google picking your feet in Poughkeepsie, a line from Gene Hackman in The French Connection. It meant the authorities can invent any excuse they need in order to arrest or harass you. Yeah. They're bringing in a hate crime unit. They're going to be looking for hate crimes, people. Make sure there's no misunderstandings. Make sure that a dog doesn't urinate on the Oscar Peterson memorial in Ottawa, because they'll call that a hate crime. And by the way, I say that glibly, facetiously. I say that tongue in cheek. That's how disingenuous the prosecution in some of the cases we've seen from Ottawa would be. There's an Oscar Peterson, and I just knew it offhand because when I was there, you go by, it's Oscar Peterson at a piano, it's playing some of his music. You go by and have if the demographics fit, you have someone whose dog does lifts its leg on the stand of the piano. You will have people saying that that's a hate crime. No joke. That is as absurd as the world in which we are living currently is. Now, starred super chats. Did I bring this one up? Viva. Okay, I saw this one before. My goodness, having discovered this, whoever told me to do this, there's an article. Thank you very much. And that's from, it looks like it's from the Federalist, but it's quoting John Hopkins. So go straight to the John Hopkins study if you don't want to rely on the Federalist. Thank you very much. All of the days to time in while eating lunch. Oh man, I remember I had a job that had a punch card. It's terrible. RCM. I will not read that, but I appreciate the acronym. Once upon a time, there was that great game on the internet called Acrophobia, where you had to come up with good acronyms. Does it mean the ride for dad isn't allowed? Does that mean the ride for dad isn't allowed in Ottawa now? Or is this a pick and choose new policy from these communists? And then we got, if you ever decide to flee Canada, come to Michigan, or is that Missouri? That's got to be. Well, spoiler alert, if I go, I'm not going to Michigan or Missouri. I will certainly drive across the country. Okay. So that's the official press release from the police. Okay, now I think these chats, I believe I've seen. They use your phone to track you at the demonstration, leave it at home. Yeah, but that's not, first of all, they're going to be taking pictures of people there. They were doing it at the last protest. I saw the cops behind the line of the non-militarized police just taking pictures. And he looked so happy when he was doing it, snapping pictures of people in the crowd. Because it's, you know what they want to do. Okay, here we go. This is live from the shed. To be clear, event is moving forward. Marshall Point listed on rollingthunderottawa.com, and final route will be announced day of. All welcome. And I will use this opportunity to bring your attention to Live from the Shed and to publicly disclaim that I am not an organizer. I am not I don't know if I'm a participant. I have nothing to do with this protest. I speak with the people who do it live from the shed. I had them on the channel, and I will be there live streaming it. Unless I can't get there. So it's this weekend. They attacked us at patriotcane.com because of Patriot in our name. It has killed our business. I don't know what Patriot Cane is, but I would invite people to go check it out and try and undo the wrong that may have been done. Is Patriot Cane, I want to say it's like a sugar product. Let me go see. Let's go see while we're here. Research in real time, people. patriotcane.com. What are they selling? Patriot Cane made by American veterans. Hold on, we're sharing the screen, people. Again, I cannot vet any of this. This may be a scam. This may be something that says it's made by veterans and it's not. This is not an endorsement. If this were going to be a sponsored ad or an endorsement, I would do my own due diligence beforehand, but it looks still not using cookies, Patriot Cane. But this is what it is. Handcrafted in the U.S. by disabled American veterans, the Patriot Cane is the ultimate walking aid that provides added stability, safety, and self-defense for anyone in need of walking support or just an extra level of safety. Here's an interesting thing, Safety Cane. Let me go back and see we're all looking at the same thing. Yet we are. In Canada, you could not walk. We just discussed this last week, I think, or sometime over the weekend. You cannot have anything on you in public intended for the overt purposes of self-defense. So if there's like a little section where you can pull out the top of the cane and there's a weapon on it, that would be illegal in Canada. If your intention were to pretend needing the cane just so that you could have the cane to use as a weapon, even for self-defense, that would not be permitted in Canada. I prefer the canes that have like the little section for scotch or for, a little cylinder down the middle. But unlike most canes currently on the market, Patriot Cane incorporates aircraft-grade aluminum with the advantage of a steel core shaft. This feels like a commercial. It is not a commercial. I have no affiliation, and I'm not. If everyone chooses to go get a cane, I don't get a penny out of it. All that I know is. Well, hold on one second. The dog just made a little noise. Patriot Cane. So it's not sugar cane. It's a cane. Here, I'm going to go put this in the chat, and then I'm going to go to YouTube and see if I can find this. My grandmother's no longer among the living. Viva Fry penis cane, and it's not what it sounds like. It's exactly what it sounds like.
We're doing an unboxing video today.
This is me.
Very special one. Ross Taylor Originals. Products made from the reproductive organ of an American buffalo or domestic bull.
It's canes made from penises, but this is my grandmother when we gave it to her.
You don't have to waste your money.
The only problem here, it says, read that, what it says up there.
Okay. The only problem was a typo in my grandmother's name, but it was such a funny typo, I kept it. But that was my grandmother, people. Lived to 103. Yeah, the penis cane. She never actually used it. I ended up not getting it, but I kept it when she passed away. So, okay, so Patriot Cane, guys, check it out. CJ Ferris. That's the aggregate knowledge of the internet. A good joke is a good joke. PatriotCanes.com, people. Okay, hold on. I missed a few super chats. I don't know what this means, but I thank you for the super chat. Clyde, do something. Mayor Jim Watson tweeted out that the police statement was fake. I saw that. Then deleted his tweet this morning. He has no idea what's happening in his city. Well, in fairness to Jim Watson, he said that the specific screen grab of a press release was fake. He deleted it. And what they released, I don't think they released that exact same wording. So they might have changed the wording, in which case he's technically right, but still dishonest or still misleading or still ill-informed. Maybe he has no idea what's going on. Okay. We've got the Patriot Cane Booyakasha and then this. And yeah, that was funny when we got that from my mom. Ouch, what's wrong with Michigan? You're at least 20 years too young for our governor to want to. Well, the fishing in Michigan, I do know the fishing's amazing. But I also think I might have made a sufficient enemy out of Gretchen Whitmer. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens to Michigan in the long run. But no, that's not on my list of places. And I seem to have missed another. Oh no, I got it. Okay, I got the other super chat. Patriot King, do you deliver to Canada? Patriot King, let us know. Okay. Viva, Trudeau is calling a public inquiry into invocation of the act. I don't know. You mean a second time? I don't know. I haven't heard that. I'll look it up afterwards. And yeah, so that was, by the way, that's what the police have issued by way of statement. And I just had to, ask the obvious question. Why would you need a hate crime unit, Ottawa Police? Do you have any legit hate crimes during the 3-week protest in Ottawa? They have the 2 events that occurred, oddly enough, on the first day, only once. One, perfectly timed photograph of the alleged Yahtzee flag and the Confederate flag. They had exactly 1 or 2, I say 2 such events, even if they were bona fide hate crimes, the guy flying the flag. One of the alternative explanations, if you want to think of it this way, is that the individual carrying the Yahtzee flag was not carrying it to express support for Yahtzeeism or for the Yahtzees, but was rather carrying it to equate the Trudeau government to the Yahtzees in their government tactics. I'm not saying that I buy that as a potential excuse, but it's a potential stupid act out of a hyperbolic comparison, or it was just some dude looking for attention, or it was the agent provocateur, as we call them. You guys do it better in the States, but it doesn't mean it doesn't happen from time to time in Canada. Because when you have exactly 2 pictures, exactly 2 events that occur exactly and only on the first day, and then never again for the next 3 weeks of the protest, you're not out of your mind to ask some questions. By the way, one thing, I haven't checked if we're still monetized. Let's see this. Still monetized? Nope. Let's go request every single time for the last month and a half plus. And every single one of them gets remonetized. Oh, you know what? That's a perfect segue. Who said it? The price of freedom is eternal vigilance. I think it was George Washington. Let me go see here. I believe it was George Washington. The price of freedom is eternal vigilance. Who said it? See if the chat gets it before. Thomas Jefferson. Damn it. Thomas Jefferson. The price of freedom is eternal vigilance. And on my second channel, Viva Clips, I had an issue with YouTube, and it was bullcrap. It was bullcrap, and it was unfair bullcrap. And my reputation is important to me, and respecting community guidelines is important to me. And I posted a video where you now know the video, which was removed from the Clips channel. It was demonetized. Then I asked for manual review. And then on manual review, but this is before publication, by the way, it was removed for violating alleged community guidelines. It's bullcrap. And I filed an appeal, and within not even enough time to actually have a meaningful manual review of the appeal, my appeal was rejected. Still bullcrap. I get on live chat with YouTube, assuming that it's a real person. I'm convinced it's AI on the other end, but it doesn't matter. They at least engage in discussion and escalate it. And I say, this is bullcrap. Can you please escalate and have someone manually review the rejected appeal, which was supposed to be a manual review. 2 days later, success. And it's irrelevant success. It's not like the Clips views, they get 3,000 views. I'm not doing it. It's not a question of principle. It's a question of integrity. And it's a question of not besmirching and or allowing dishonest players to then besmirch someone. No one would have known about this, but then if people find out, then bad players will use this to malign an individual. Price of freedom is eternal vigilance. Had to fight an issue with YouTube on my second channel. Vindication after 2 days. And Viva Clips, we've reached a decision on your appeal. We reviewed your appeal for the following content. And by the way, it was nothing. It was consistent of me reading an article from The Guardian. And it was obviously a mistake, but you're dealing with a machine that is operating on such scale. It is impossible to, there will be misapplication of the rules, and there will be superficial review of improper application of the rules. It's just, that being said, whatever. After taking another look, we can confirm that it does not violate our community guidelines. Thank you for your patience while we reviewed the appeal, and thank you for reviewing it, and thank you for coming to the right decision. But it wasn't just a one-way victory. It was a double whammy, because then I got another email that says, after manual review, now it's also monetized for, and again, on a per video basis. Oh, did I close it? Whatever. I think you guys saw that. On a per video basis, it's irrelevant. It's insignificant. It's what happens when YouTube demonetizes a video. They have no interest in promoting it. It makes sense. It's a vicious circle of soft censorship. Viva, have you heard String of Fires? Okay, I've heard about it. Plane crashes, explosions, and nearly 24. I heard it, and I actually watched Tucker Carlson's piece on it. I still have the same questions. I'd like to know concrete numbers, month over month and year over year, because food processing plants, and from what I understand, a number of them were explosion. There, other than some very very suspicious ones, a lot of them seem to be explosions or non-arson issues. The question is, these places might have a high frequency given the nature of what they do for these types of incidents. I bet the insurance is up the wazoo. So I didn't get the answers of those questions. You need concrete numbers, not fluff, not there's a lot, not, it's suspicious. You need concrete numbers, because if you don't have a concrete basis of comparison, well, you can come to the conclusion you want then, but it will be an inaccurate one. So anyways, that was my moral victory with YouTube, which felt good, because I like to keep my clean track record is something I'm very proud of. Some of you might fault me for it because I'm playing by the rules of the game, which I am, because it does no good to cut your own tongue out. I'm on Rumble, and Rumble is a fantastic platform. And there are some discussions that I only feel comfortable having on Rumble. Imagine an interview with actual doctors. I feel the need to conduct these on Rumble, because YouTube knows better than doctors as to what they're going to call medical misinformation. But the idea of flipping the bird to YouTube in a way that only allows YouTube to do what it wants by censoring you, and then you cut yourself out of actually reaching people who you want to reach. The people who I need to reach, they're on Rumble already. They're on locals. The people who you might, the new people that you will not reach if you're not on YouTube, you won't reach them if you're not on YouTube. So that, and from a pure business perspective, you have to be stupid to say, as a matter of principle, I'm just going to say, screw YouTube, screw the biggest platform, screw, the ad revenue that you get there that allows you to continue doing what you want to do. So there's no, artists starve to death. It's not, it doesn't mean it's a good business plan. So I did the trust the science. I did the, that. Okay. Well, that was all. We're not quite done yet. Although I think Johnny Depp is going on, and I've got to deal with a few things at home. What is a wazoo? That is, I believe it's the polite term for the butt, up the butt or out the wazoo. I think it's the rear end. At least that's how I was brought up. That's how I was brought up with it. Hold on, I'm just going to go back to my Twitter feed for 1 second, because it's the running diary of my life. I've ranted as much as I want to rant against that. It's just atrocious to normalize inhumane relationships that are the most sacred. Ottawa, it's on the 30th. Go to Live from the Shed for information. Highlight from yesterday. Played both of these clips. Oh, the Elon Musk news. See, this tweet: if someone professes offensive, baseless, and or morally objectionable opinions, you don't silence them. You give them a bullhorn. You silence them when they speak the truth that threatens your power, and you know it will resonate if heard. What, like, it's just it's an obvious thought. It's a variation of smarter things people have said in the past. But some people read it as a reference to Elon Musk, and others read it as a reference to the CDC. But this is just a reference to all attempts to censor. The idea that someone had said, the idea that Trump, is it in there? That Trump was a buffoon, that he spewed nonsense. And so that's the reason why you had to prevent people from hearing his nonsense being spewed. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, it doesn't even pass the smell test of a litmus test of a fundamental test. And the same thing goes for, Twitter saying they're not going to run ads that contradict the science, as if science is an immutable truth that is not susceptible of evolution or being disproven. I mean, it's quite obvious what the purpose of censorship is. And then some people say, well, Viva, you want to allow death threats and hate speech and all this stuff. First of all, there are already laws against that. So you don't need to rely on ambiguous censorship to get at that which is already illegal. Reminds me of the last topic, which is Quebec stripping parents of parental supremacy. You already have laws against this. Hate speech, I appreciate in the States, it's not a thing for you guys. In Canada, it's not just a thing. It's illegal in Canada. What is hate speech? I mean, good luck defining it. The courts have tried, but it varies. And that'll be $10,000. Okay, let's make sure we're in focus. So, there's no room for harassment. There's no room for doxing. There's no room for criminal threats. There's no room for targeted harassment. But those are already illegal. But the idea that you have to censor on Alex Jones, if the man speaks nonsense, give him a bullhorn. Oh, it's my father. I might have to call him back soon. Okay, if the man speaks nonsense, give him a bullhorn. Because the easiest way to expose idiotic ideas, expose it to the aggregate knowledge of the internet. And the idea you need to protect people from conspiracy theories. There are, oh, and you love it that the one example they give of why you need to censor certain speech because it could lead to real life violence was the pizza shop guy. They fail. If that's the rationale, I believe it's not controversial to say that you should censor MSNBC and CNN then, because a lot more people watch that crap and then turn to actual violence. And that's, so that's it. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. Except the problem is when it's ambiguous and politically weaponized terms of service. What's good for the goose is not necessarily good for the gander. Yeah, and I've talked about this before. They're making laws based on exceptions. It's the worst way to legislate. You don't make laws based on the exceptions. You make laws as a rule to govern the rule. And then when you have exceptions, you might deal with those by way of exceptional laws. But speaking of where you take an incident and then you legislate what will inevitably be problematic laws based on the exceptions or based on just the system not working properly. I talked about it briefly yesterday. Let me just, I did a standalone vlog on it yesterday from the car, which had a flat tire, which I had to change this morning. And now I got to take the car to the shop. It was Quebec Bill 15. There was an article in, by the way, just here, I'll do one thing. Nah, I don't need to do that one. Geez, there was an article in Global News. Quebec Bill 15, 1 week ago. I guess we'll pick this one up here. The bill is intended to prioritize the interests of a child over all other interests as relates to the application of the Youth Protection Act. And the reason why I say that the exceptions on which rules are based make for very problematic rules because that's not how they're supposed to work. And you'll hear the backstory behind this. This is CTV News. Okay, this is the article I broke down in the vlog yesterday, but I want to address some of the comments I saw yesterday in the live stream because I hear both voices, and I'll give you my thoughts. Youth protection bill to prioritize the interests of children over parents. Okay, the wording there is unique because I don't. When they said parental supremacy was, a principle of the Youth Protection Act, it obviously did not mean to protect the parental decisions which were harmful to the child. And there's case law about that. There's been a lot of case law about that. Parental supremacy does not mean that the parents get to choose to abuse their child, and it would never be a defense for the application of the Youth Protection Act to say parental supremacy. I've made the decision not to give my kid 3 meals a day, or to any number of abusive behavior. So, I mean, parental supremacy, in my limited understanding, and I may be wrong, was never intended to prioritize, and I'm not saying whimsical decisions by the parents. It was not intended to cloak or protect abusive parenting or abusive parental decisions under the guise of parental supremacy. But an incident occurred where they said, we have to go investigate all this stuff now and revamp the Youth Protection Act and insert this amendment, which I think is disastrous. I think it will be proven to be disastrous. Quebec is answering a call to reform its youth protection services, a decision made all the more relevant following the killing of a 7-year-old girl from Granby in 2019. Passed unanimously. I have a question for Eric Duhem, who I'm going to be on his channel with tomorrow. I think there's 1 or 2 conservatives in our National Assembly in Quebec. Everyone else is Coalition Avenir de Québec, Liberal, Independent. Passed unanimously, though. The new law will facilitate the placement of children into foster care, overhauling the principle of parental primacy. Stop moving ad, which favors keeping children with their biological families, even in cases of neglect and abuse. And that is where, that's the catch right there. But then the incident which calls for change, the province, it was put under the microscope following the death of a young girl from Granby. Valérie Assouline, the lawyer for the mother of the young girl in Granby who was killed, said she is pleased. And the incident was that there was a child who was being kept with the stepmother in a known situation of abuse. And stepmother ended up duct taping the kid down head to toe overnight, and the kid died. Mother was convicted. 3 or 5 hours of deliberations, unanimous verdict, which leads me to believe that it was not a problem of application of any existing laws, but rather the system itself. And maybe the system is, if the system works as well as the healthcare system, it's a problematic system. So the idea was that this is going to prioritize the interests of the child over staying with biological families. And my questions are with respect to the stepmother who did that to the kid, is not biological, but maybe the kid was being kept with a biological parent and a stepmother who was not biological. But they come in with this law now that's going to prioritize the interests of the child. It strips the parents of parental supremacy. So the problem with that, obviously, now is the child's interest is prioritized over all other interests. In my mind, that is tantamount to saying we're going to respect parental supremacy, because parental supremacy, when exercised the way it's supposed to be, always has the child's best interest in mind. It just happens to be what the parent thinks the child's best interest is, and not the administrative state. Right now, by stripping the parents of parental supremacy, they're basically saying the parent doesn't decide what's in the child's best interests. The court system does. The youth protection administrative body does. And that's going to be a very big problem, in my view. Because what it's basically going to say is, if a child says they're being abused because of things which the child themselves considers to be a form of abuse, you don't have to think too far, too hard to know where that's going to go. And it's already gone there. In cases of parents who don't want to give their kid the jab, and another parent who does, in the case of divorce, we've seen parents stripped of their parenting rights, visitation rights, because they didn't want to get the jab themselves, or they didn't want their kids to get the jabs. Same thing goes for transition therapy. We've seen now, in the context of divorce, parents losing certain rights as a parent because of a divorce. Now, True, up until now, this has only occurred in the context of the lawfare of divorce and separation law. It's only going to be a matter of time before a kid says, both my parents say no to X and Y. I consider that to be a form of abuse. They go to the authorities. The authorities open up an investigation. You get the clause of the administrative state in your family bubble, and they say, no, parental supremacy is now a thing of the past. It's the interests of the child as determined by the state. Where do you think that could go? All right, and I'm going to get to some of the comments because there were people who said they were victims of abuse, and this is going to be good because it's going to better protect children, and I appreciate that. My major query is whether or not the system did not already have the necessary tools in place. Did what happened to the little girl in Granby happen because the system lacked the tools, or because the system failed to implement and properly use the tools they already had in place? Obviously, this bill is not intended to prioritize the interests of the children over the parents. It is to prioritize the interests of the government. Well, I mean, it's not above and beyond abuse. What's in the best interest of the child it is to some degree subjective. But on the other hand, I'll trust a parent every time over the government in the absence of what would be objective signs of abuse or objective abuse in the first place, in which case you don't need to talk about removing parental supremacy. You just need to talk about applying the law which outlaws abuse. But, there were some people in the chat saying this is a good move. It's going to better protect kids because perhaps the system lacked the tools that were necessary to remove children from abusive relationships or abusive environments involving biological parents, because it was always deemed to be the best or perhaps prioritized to keep the child with biological parents. But in my limited understanding, taking the children out of abusive relationships, they did not prioritize biological connections over parental abuse. As far as I understand, they never did that. So I think this is a tool to a problem that actually did not exist because it already had its own solutions. More laws, less justice. Cicero or Tacitus. Good time music. In the future, you comment on recent CMAJ study, impact of population mixing. I'm going to go look at it. I have no idea what it is. I'll go look it up. And Viva, Michelle Parsons says, Viva, did Canada learn nothing from the forced education of Indigenous children? The government thought they knew what was better for those children to look how that turned out. And Michelle, I think you're 100% right. The only risk of making that comparison is people who think for some reason, no, but this time it's different. Or people are going to say, no, then they knew what they were doing was wrong. When they were taking Indigenous children away from their parents and putting them in the residential schools for assimilation to breed the Indigenous out of them, the government thought, or at the very least publicly affirmed, that they were doing it for the good of the children. And I don't doubt that they thought they were at the time. I mean, they said it. They said as much. I'm not going to say, who am I to say that they knew that they were lying when they said it? They just said it so they can do it. They thought that they were doing it for the good of the children. And then, once you stick them in these government systems, they don't work well. They have abuse. They have crime, criminality. They have all sorts of problems because the government, there's not very many things the government does better than the private sector. And when it comes to raising children, they certainly don't do it, for the most part, better than parents. But no doubt, when they were taking Indigenous children from their parents, putting them in schools where they could be assimilated into Western European culture, they said they were doing it for the well-being of the Indigenous children. They said assimilation was the only way forward for them. And by the way, I'm going to bring this up. Rodi Lacid says, but Viva, this is, by the way, what the law was called back in the day, La Loi sur les Sauvages. And then they renamed it to the Indian Act, which they're going to have to rename sooner than later because that too has become an offensive term. Yeah. No, it's like and people don't understand this. People think now the government knew what they were doing was illegal, wrong, and immoral at the time. And they're only now admitting it. I have no doubt they thought what they were doing was for the good of the Indigenous children. They quickly found out about all the problems that happen when you try to get the government involved in these things. They tried to cover up for it. They tried to minimize it. And then when they couldn't any longer, when it became politically expedient to own up to it and apologize for it and pay for the settlement amounts from Canadian taxpayer dollars, using Canadian citizen taxpayer dollars to pay for the wrongs of the government. That's the only time Justin Trudeau gave a sweet bugger all about that subject, when he could use it for re-election. Because everybody thinks that the discovery of the mass graves, by the way, just slight parentheses, a lot of people think that the discovery of the mass graves was a new thing. First of all, a lot of people think that these mass graves were like wartime mass graves, where you had a massive amount of killing, digging a hole, burying it to cover it up. They were unmarked graves because they had been there for so long that the makeshift, what do you call them? Not plinths, but the makeshift cemetery monuments had worn away. These were unmarked graves. They've been known about for a long time. They've been known about since the Truth and Reconciliation Committee produced their final report and gave the government the names of the kids. I think it was in 2015. Sweet, benevolent Justin Trudeau didn't give a sweet bugger all about it until it became time for election. And then after the election, didn't give a sweet... Wait a minute, when did he skip the Indigenous Day? Was that after he was reelected or before? Either way, Trudeau didn't give a sweet bugger all about it until it became politically convenient and politically expedient to do so. Someone will always have a good reason for their abuse. We didn't know. We meant well. The road to hell is paved in good intentions. So the problem with this law, it's going to be used for this purpose sooner than later. It's going to be used for parents. It's going to be used against parents. Kids going to come to school and say that my parents, talk about some private family discussion about a politically sensitive topic. And you're going to get the government thinking that they have the right, and not just the right, but the obligation to get involved for the interests of the child, which now trump parental supremacy. In my view, in my mind, parental supremacy never included the right to abuse a child. If there was ever a judge out there who said, I'm going to put this kid back with his parents because of parental supremacy, even though I know that there is outright abuse, I think that's on the judge, not on the law. We got Mike Riendo in the house. He says, government said forced integration would balance race and class disparities. Now they're demanding systematic segregation for the same reasons. That is an insightful observation, Mike. And thank you for the chat. And I love the avatar. All right. So that's it. Creep is their best song. If you want to, I know the lyrics off by heart, but I won't say them. YOLO is the best song. Like Expletive in My Pants is one of the best videos. Which ones are classic? Incredibad is a surprisingly good album. But I'm going to tell you one thing. Popstar Keep On Keeping On is perhaps the most underrated comedy of all time, in my humble opinion. Aurora Diaz's blocking results in there not being enough male tissue later on in life to construct a female cavity. So I can neither confirm nor deny this statement. But the question is going to come up sooner than later. It's going to come up sooner than later, and it's not going to be in the context of two parents bitterly fighting over custody of their children, over the love of their child, where one thinks they might have an advantage in divorce for custody purposes by taking the side of the child. This is going to come up in situations where the child is going to rebel or, say they want something and my parents won't let me have it. And by not letting me have it, it's abuse. It's in my best interest. Get the state involved. And parental supremacy is now a thing of the past. This was a big one. When I heard about this, I said this was a big one. And this was one of the red line issues, politically speaking, for me in this province. All right. With that said, people, I see a lot of text messages that I had better get to. Okay, I better get to some of them that are more urgent than others. People, tomorrow, I'm going to send the link out when I have it. I'm going to be on with Eric Duham, and I think it's on at 5:30 in the afternoon. I'll probably, out of the sheer love of these live stream formats, go live beforehand if I can. If there's news to talk about, we'll see what happens with Elon Musk's. I think, from what I said, it was if not a done deal, very close to a done deal. But we'll see. I don't know if there's been news in the meantime. But thank you all for being here. Oh, geez, hold on. Sorry, let me see if I miss anything on Rumble before I check out for the day. Get back to parental duty. Duty. So I don't see any Rumble rants. If there were any there and I missed them, my apologies. But people, thank you for everything. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the encouragement, the kind words. Thank you for the constructive criticism. And I dare say I'll even thank the trolls because they keep you honest and they keep you self-reflective. All right. So Stay tuned for news. Twitter, vivabarneslaw.locals.com, YouTube, Rumble, and see you tomorrow. Enjoy the day, peeps.